Hello and welcome to another video from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. Today I'm joined by David to look at the key captaincy candidates for Game Week 9. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Very refreshed after an international break. So yeah, looking forward. I'm actually looking forward to the captain choice rather than worrying about it this week.
Well, I am. I'm a little bit too relaxed, I think. So I think I kind of need this discussion now to kind of get me into the swing of it, so I can work out what to do with Game Week 9. I mean, the first place to look at, I think, has to be Manchester City. That looks like a great fixture at home to Burnley. So yeah, I mean, which Man City options should we be going for? I think one name in particular probably stand out.
Yeah, I mean Burnley is one to look at. They've conceded more shots than anyone this season, so when they're going to be away from home against a team that's had the most shots this season, it's a nice matchup. It's always good to look at, and obviously we're going to go straight to Aguero, aren't we? Because in the last 4 game weeks, he's had more goal attempts than any other Man City player, despite playing fewer minutes than most of them as well. So bearing in mind that he's had this international break where he's not played, he's had this rest. I said this before the break, so I'll probably sound like a bit of a broken record, but I'm kind of hoping that he's in a situation where he's not going to get rotated quite so often. But even if he does, he's kind of been the safe pick because he's basically been delivering before he's come off. I mean, I think it was close in the last particular game. It was not the Liverpool game, so the last home game. It was honestly a case of if he didn't score that one particular chance, he was minutes from blanking, which is a little bit worrying. But like I said, I'm really looking at Aguero now because I think he's going to be fit, rare and ready to go. Even when he's had this injury, he's been above Jesus in the pecking order, so he's definitely going to start, in my opinion. And hopefully Guardiola, like I said, uses this as an opportunity just to give him 90 minutes again in a game where he could get a hat trick. I mean, Burnley are going to they're going to allow a lot of shots, and you allow a team like Man City a lot of shots, I think they're going to score.
Well,
I don't really think
as
Burnley
you said,
can offer much in the other direction. So,
well, as you said, it's that perfect combination, isn't it? You've said Burnley are conceding all of those shots. Yeah. Aguero is taking all of those shots as well, and so that's the kind of combination that you want. He does have a good record against Burnley as well, and he should be rested as well, because there was this talk before, wasn't there, that he was kind of carrying this injury, and Guardiola was saying, well, the plan is really get him nice and rested over that international break, and that implied it would be an end to those kind of 55-minute, 60-minute substitutions. You do seem pretty confident that we're going to get much more time out of Aguero this time around.
Yeah, I think so. That's what they were suggesting. I mean, obviously I think that we'll be completely confident that that's definitely the case once you've had the presser, because I feel like that's got to be a question the journalists are going to ask Guardiola is, has he had enough rest for you to feel like you can play him for the whole game? And if those journalists don't ask that question, then they're not doing their job properly. So hopefully they do ask that question, because it's an important one. That'll be the key. I mean, I'm confident, yes, but I think I still want to see what Guardiola says, but I've got an idea of what he'd say.
This is good. Usually there's but I think Aguero might be. No, none of that. It's like just Aguero. He's going to play. Yeah. As you said, we do have to wait for that presser. What about Sterling though? He's been fantastic, and I didn't think he was going to be worth his money. He is, sadly, very expensive. Good option for captaincy.
Yeah, I'll definitely. I mean, I think it's a tricky one because I've been. We've taken a bit of heat for kind of overlooking Sterling, and I think we were right to overlook him, as you just said, because when he jumped from whatever he was last year, sort of 8 and 9 million kind of bracket up to 11, that is a big change, and it was hard to fit him into the template that was doing well. I think I'm going to say right now, yes, definitely a good captain candidate. Whether or not I can't captain him because I don't have him, but he's definitely it's coming around to that stage where I'm feeling like it might be a good idea to have him. I think I was considering it more when I was worried about Aguero. Now I'm less worried about Aguero, perhaps not. But when you're looking at in the premium midfield bracket, if people are thinking of getting rid of Salah, for example, then Sterling kind of seems like the go-to. And if you're going to do that, then bearing in mind his ownership's still low, and as you can see from his stats here, his stats are quite nice. He's been reliable in his points return. Then I think if you want to be bold and be aggressive, then captain him, because he's still at that stage where anything he does as a captain is gonna send you up the ranks, because he's owned by a lot. I don't know the exact figure, but it's still quite low.
I mean, what I particularly like about Sterling is, yes, we've seen those shots there. We've seen that he's matching Aguero for goals. But the thing I like as well is he's got looking at the chances created, those key passes. Over the last 4 game weeks, he's made 11. And those above him, so you've got Sigurdsson, his teammate Bernardo Silva with 13, Anderson at West Ham with 13, and Willian 12 with Fraser with 12. So they're the only players above Sterling out in the entire game. So what you've got there is you've got that extra point for a goal. So you get the 5 points for a goal with Sterling, the possibility of a clean sheet point as well, plus the assist, and then therefore possibly bonus as well. So you've got this. You've got the potential for quite a hefty score with Sterling. You've also got the potential for a blank. But I think, yeah, I think captaincy wise, I think he's, as you said, if you want to climb up the rankings, you need that differential. Sterling over Aguero could be the way to go. You mentioned another. Sorry, isn't it? There's KDB as well coming back as well. Once again, that could be another differential, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think about it until a couple of days ago when I saw how potentially soon his return could be, and he could really shake things up because, as we know, in years gone by, he has been just a great returner of points. He's regular with it. He can score. He can get assists. I mean, I think this week is probably a bit too soon. But as I said, and as I always say, the presser may change things because if Guardiola says later in the week he's completely fit and he's ready to play, then that opens things up a little bit more. But I would still like to see him on the pitch again before I start suggesting that people should captain him, because even if Guardiola says he's fit, he might not necessarily play. It's a game where he could play because I think, as we've just discussed, I think Man City will run away with it. So maybe we could see De Bruyne in the second half. But, there's a few... definitely he's back in the conversation. I think next week or the week after, I would be more confident in saying, have a look at him. Let's see him on the pitch first.
Another player you mentioned there, not a Man City player, is Salah. And ordinarily, an away match to Huddersfield would be, oh, hello, let's captain Salah. But disaster, or potentially disaster. The little ambulance symbol has appeared on Twitter next to his name. So yeah, what's happened there? Have we had any update really? Above this news from a couple of days ago?
Yeah, it's so frustrating. I had my armband on him last week, and it had been on him pretty much. I think you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of days ago, that you're one of these people that the second the deadline passes, you just go straight to your team, and you set for next week. And that's what I did, and I set straight for Salah because I was so confident about that game. But yeah, then obviously over the international break, he's picked up this injury. It's frustrated a lot of people because it's I think it's an AFCON qualifier and it was against Swaziland. And when I mentioned that to my brother was like, I'd never even heard of that country. So why is he playing in that game?
You can never underestimate the Swazilanders. That's what they say in the African Cup of Nations.
But I understand why he's played. I think it's one of these things where a lot of Egyptians are, you're going to pay big money to go see Egypt play. You expect Salah to be there, but obviously he's got an injury in that game. It's some kind of muscle injury, and generally people seem to be acting that it's not too bad. The only update since that tweet there is that I think he's coming back to Liverpool's training ground, which I think can only be a good thing, because I think it will hopefully mean we get an update sooner rather than later, because all the information we've had so far is largely from Egypt's team, and obviously I seem to remember over the World Cup they weren't too reliable when it came to Salah, and they seem to be wanting more from him than he was prepared to give, perhaps. And so getting some information from our side of the divide will be good. That will come in the next couple of days. But obviously, yeah, it does kind of put us off, because even though they're saying that he's probably all right, until I hear from Klopp something along the lines of he will play, then I'm thinking, like, if he's touch and go, it's Huddersfield, and Shaqiri has done well when he's come on, so why not just give Salah the day off and stick Shaqiri in? So it's so frustrating, because I've been saying for a while I'm sticking with him for these games, and then they've come round and he might not play. So but that's why I've now gone to Aguero. That's why I'm just more about Aguero than I was before, because Salah really just for now been taken out of the conversation until I hear Klopp say he's fine.
One of the reasons I would favour Aguero over Salah, even if Salah was fit, is because whilst it hasn't garnered huge points, apart from once, the Aguero Salah captaincy has really worked when you're looking at home fixtures. If one of them's playing at home, captain them. Simple as that. And that has worked, and that's delivered returns every week. And in particular, those that stood firm in that in the face of clickbaity journalism and captained him for his 20-pointer. That Aguero turn was great. And so I think you're probably right. I own both. I own one. I'll probably own both by the end of the week. It will be on Aguero over Salah. But Salah is a good fixture. Huddersfield are awful at the back as well. If someone was really keen on captaining a Liverpool asset, and perhaps were wary of Salah and perhaps had another one, which other ones? You mentioned Shaqiri there. Is he worth a punt? And what about a Mane as well?
Yeah, it's hard because I mean we did the membership articles on Locked over the weekend, and one of the ones that we looked at was so if you've got Liverpool assets, who do you kind of go with, or who do you sell any of them? Do you buy any of them? Do you hold them, etc.? And largely the underlying numbers over the last few weeks were saying that Salah was kind of streaks ahead of Mane and Firmino. So it's tricky because Huddersfield are terrible. We all know that. But interestingly, that defensively they're not allowing as many shots as Cardiff and Fulham are, for example. So and also even Arsenal have allowed more big chances than Huddersfield. So if Salah's not involved, then I'm in and ahhing about it. Mane and Firmino just haven't done enough to suggest to me that they are captain material when Man City are there presenting such a much more appealing case. I'm always try and go form just about over fixture. We like to think they're both important, but for form I feel is slightly more important. So yeah, I'm not sure about Mane and Firmino because I think Mane especially has massively regressed back to what we would suggest is normal. He's the numbers he was posting in the first 4 game weeks. He hasn't matched that at all. So yeah, it's tricky. And obviously Shaqiri, if we knew he was going to start, then yeah, maybe, but still too much information unknown, I would say, before captaining them. So I just think it's got to be all about City. If it's Liverpool versus City, on the current information we have, I think you just got to go for a City option.
One of the reasons I mentioned Mane is because Milner is out, and Milner's the penalty man. And we think, although we're not sure, and you might better help here, is Mane second in the? Well,
yeah,
order?
He might be. We're not sure. We think he could be because over pre-season he took 2 penalties, and one of them was won by Salah, so we know he's ahead of him, or at least maybe ahead of him. And also one of them was scored when Milner was on the pitch. So how much it counts for, I don't really know. I mean, some people have suggested that they were just given to him to just get him off the mark. He's effectively a forward in that team. And, we've seen that Mark Noble did it with Arnautovic, didn't he? He said first penalty of the season. Obviously, that was a competitive game, but he was basically saying sometimes it's nice just to give the penalty to a striker because his job is to score goals. And if he's got some goals, it gives him some confidence. So there's a case to be made that maybe he's a penalty taker, but until we kind of really see it in a competitive setting, I don't want to come out and say he is the penalty taker.
Okay, well,
he might be.
There's something for Mane owners to consider.
Yeah,
there's a possibility there. One of the things I was looking at the shots on target stats as well. So Salah, in terms of shots over the last 4, is 13. And Mane's 9. So he's edging him there. But shots on target is actually the same, 5. And I guess that doesn't show that Mane is particularly good because 5 shots on target over 4 game weeks is quite good, but it's not really good. It's not captain good. But Salah's 13 goal attempts with just 5 on target. That probably just shows how bad he's been in terms of accuracy. And I think that for me is the real headline thing with Salah. I want to see some more accuracy. It's going to happen, we hope, because we saw it happen last season. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough one as well. But there's plenty of other captaincy options. Looking back at the fixtures here, one I quite like the look of. It looks tough on paper, but Hazard against Manchester United. Is he an option?
Yeah, I briefly considered him, and people will be right to consider him because the form he's in is fantastic. I think he's still only got 1 blank this season, which is crazy. And obviously that was away at West Ham, and I'm unlucky not to get some goals there. I think Hazard. Man United obviously sort of not particularly in great form. I think I think only 3 or 4 teams have allowed more have conceded more goals over the last 4 game weeks. They've conceded the same number of goals as Huddersfield. So if we're saying that Huddersfield are in bad form, then we've got to be saying United are as well.
Well, also on the road as well. So, yeah, Manchester United have conceded 7 on the road, and only 3 teams have conceded more away from home. So that's West Ham, Fulham and Huddersfield. Obviously, not all teams have played exactly the same amount of away. But that backs up what you just said there, that they're there for the taking.
Exactly. There's a very simple sort of... The case isn't huge. It's not complicated. It's just Hazard's in great form. Man United aren't. There you go.
Simple. There's another fixture there I like. Look at this over the last couple of seasons. It's been a great fixture. Arsenal against Leicester. So Lacazette and Vardy. So here's just a couple of things I noticed. Over the last 2 fixtures, there's been 11 goals. That's a 4-3 to Arsenal and a 3-1 to Leicester. That's the league games there. Lacazette, Aubameyang both scored a goal, and Vardy scored 3 times over those 2. And they go into that in a bit Arsenal slightly shaky form at the back. They've had some good easy sides, and they haven't encountered a Vardy for a little while. So Arsenal shipped 62 shots in the box. That's the 9th worst over the last 4. And Leicester are much better. They're actually the 7th best there for conceding shots in the box. That does indicate that one of those names I mentioned there, one of those strikers, they could prosper here.
Yeah, I think we could be looking at a brace for both Lacazette and Vardy, to be honest, because I mean it could happen. It could easily happen. I mean, as you say, the scoring history of that fixture is is quite exciting, and neither of their defences. I mean, there's some slightly encouraging numbers there for Leicester, but I mean, when we looked at the most recent game week, Everton came to the King Power with really dreadful away form, especially going forward, and completely dominated them. So there's always a stinker in Leicester's locker when it comes to defence. And if they're going up against an Arsenal attack that is on fire, then I think they can score as well. I think interesting, as I just said, I think Arsenal they've allowed more big chances over the last 4 game weeks than Huddersfield have. So I just think a high scoring game. I mean, obviously. I mean, from a personal angle, I don't have either of these players. I don't have Lacazette or Vardy. But, if you've got them, and I know some people have been captaining Lacazette over the last couple of weeks and making some real gains. So, I mean, this particular fixture, this isn't one where you stop doing that. If you found that you've been making some gains on it. So, yeah, definitely worth considering.
There's another factor with this game, and this isn't anything to do with skill or stats. This is the fact it's on a Monday night. And so it's the final fixture, and some people do like to captain a player on a Monday night game, because often the Monday night games are really boring. It's like Burnley against Cardiff or something awful like that. But this is quite an exciting one. I don't know, partly tempts me until I realise that there's no logic to it at all. But some people might be swayed by that as well. Now,
it's important for the Sky game, I suppose.
It is important for the Sky game, yes.
Should always point that out.
Exactly. So, because you can have captain for each day within that game week in the Sky game. What about Harry Kane? Now, that looks okay, that fixture. So, Harry Kane against West Ham. What do you think?
Well, we thought Cardiff was okay for him, didn't we? I mean, I as we will almost definitely talk about on the Scoutcast later this week, I don't have Harry Kane. I had no intention of getting him, and so therefore I'm not going to captain him against West Ham, obviously. But I think dare I say it, there's more opportunity for him to score here than there was against Cardiff, and I'm saying that in hindsight, of course, because I think Cardiff defensively were quite good. I thought anyone who watched the match of the day highlights, you missed out on the fact that Cardiff won pretty much every tackle in their own half. Whereas I don't see West Ham as that type of team, especially in a London derby where I think they're going to be going for it. I think there's going to be space. Whereas I think there was never going to be space for Kane against Cardiff, because clearly their plan was just to stick everyone behind the ball. Harry Kane has a decent scoring record against West Ham, but there's 2 ways of looking at it. So he's got 6 goals in his last 6 games against West Ham. Very nice. But in that time, he's had 3 blanks. So it's just kind of classic Harry Kane, isn't it? He's got 3 braces, 3 blanks. So I guess maybe because he blanked last week, he's due a brace this week.
So there's a bit of history, isn't there, with Kane in this fixture? So I think there is something to look at. For those, I quite like the history things. Once again, there's no logic to them really, because they're different sides. But that history there, as you said, it's a tough one. It's a glass half full thing. He could score. He could score loads, but there's a 50% chance he'll
if you've got Kane, you've got to have him the whole season, never get rid of him, and then that's how you capitalise on game weeks where he does well. If you've still got Harry Kane and you've stuck with him, then I don't want to say you have to captain him, but if that's the way you're going, and you're presumably doing that at the expense of either Salah or Aguero, then there is an onus to captain him, I think, because I think he'll do well in this game week. It's West Ham. The history is still important, and like I said, I think the fixture is more. It feels a little bit more like what a game he can score in, a high scoring game, because I think West Ham will go for it. I mean, they went for Man United, they went for Chelsea, so they always go for Spurs. So there's always a lot of goals in this game. They've beaten them at home a fair few times in recent years. They've had games where they've been winning and then Spurs have come back, and it's just these two teams hate each other. So it's going to be an open-ended game. They're both going to want to win it, and that for me is a context that kind of suits Harry Kane a little bit more than a one-sided training exercise against the Cardiff team that was just going to sit behind the ball.
So what? Just before we go, there's obviously lots of other matches that we haven't spoken about. But is there any other players that spring out there as perhaps a good differential captaincy option?
Well, I'm looking at Everton. I've had some decent attacking form recently, and they're at home against Palace, who just can't seem to really get their act together, to be honest. And Sigurdsson's looked great. Richarlison hasn't. I don't think he's returned yet. Oh no, he's got one goal since he's come back. So there's form there.
I like the Sigurdsson move because last 4 game weeks only Aguero has had more shots.
Yeah, it's
than the
crazy.
Icelandic midfielder. That's incredible.
It's really weird. It's a bit like what happened with Fraser earlier in the season. Sigurdsson is a player who primarily we look to for creativity, and then all of a sudden he's had this burst of goal threat, which is really nice. So a potential differential there, because I think he's still under 5% ownership, which is we'll have to double check before we do our differentials on the Scoutcast. Because
I hope I'm top pick because
exactly. Basically, whoever goes first is going to pick Sigurdsson every week until someone someone gets some more. Until some more people get him. The only other one, I guess, to look at, and I only say this because I love the guys, that if you're looking for a ridiculously extreme differential, then why not look at Wolves? Matt Doherty is already being described as the new Alonso. So I think he's second for shots among defenders in the last 4 game weeks. The only one who's had more is Maguire. His positions he's getting into are fantastic, and Wolves are really, really good at the back. So he offers a heck of a lot, and I think he's had 2 double-figure hauls in a row. I think he's going to get considerably more this season. So,
yeah, he's a good option. As a Doherty owner, that's music to my ears.
Oh yeah,
long may his reign continue. For now, David, thanks so much, and good luck with the game week.
Cheers, and to you.